In this video, we're going to go through all timeline settings, and I'll give you some tips on how to improve your workflow with Director Tools. To start off, let's add a cube to the scene and some tracks to it. Usually, you would select an object and use the Add Track button to do that. To make it even simpler, we've got shortcuts for adding basic tracks to objects. All you have to do is select an object, and while having focus on the timeline, hold W, E, or R and click the left mouse button to add a location, rotation, or scale track accordingly. So for a location track, I'll hold W and click. For rotation, E and click, and for scale, R and click. I will remove the scale track for now. To do that, I will simply click on the X icon on the left side of the track. Now let's add some keyframes to the location and rotation tracks, so I can show you how to change interpolation type. By default, most of the keys will have cubic interpolation mode. Open the keyframes edit window by double-clicking on it. Click on the Interp Mode combo box and choose a different type. You can also toggle between interpolation modes by holding Alt and clicking the left mouse button on a keyframe. If you would like to copy a keyframe, you can select it, hit Ctrl+C, move the time slider to where you want to paste it, and finally hit Ctrl+V. You can also hold down Alt and drag the selected keyframes with the left mouse button to create a copy of them. Obviously, you can zoom in or zoom out by using the mouse scroll and pan the view by holding and dragging the right mouse button. You may have already noticed that when you move keys, they are snapped to a certain value. This value is represented by sequence frame rate that you can change using the Timeline Settings button. You can choose between different frame rate values and see them change on a timeline. You can also switch primary timeline display between time and frames for better control over keyframes. Additionally, from this menu, you can choose different timeline play rate and modify sequence duration. By default, a timeline will have a total duration of 5 seconds. If you would like to extend it, just type in a new value and hit Enter. On the left from the Timeline Settings button, you can find a text box with the current time slider position. Here you can input a specific value to make the timeline jump to a given time or frame. To toggle the display between time or frames, click here on the left. You're probably wondering, what is this green area on the timeline for? It's called the work area, and it's very useful when you would like to loop a specific timeline range. All you have to do is grab the green triangle to modify it. Then turn looping on and hit play. You can also use toolbar buttons to set the work area start and end time to current slider value. Work area is also used during video export. This will be covered in a separate video. On the toolbar, you can also find a snap button, which, while it's enabled, makes keyframes snap to a given time or frame interval. On the right side, next to the Export button, you can see a combo button that indicates which controller is active at the moment. DT Controller holds information about actors and their tracks. So when you select any object in the scene, Director Tools will check if the active controller has any tracks information for this actor and display them on the timeline. When you enable Director Tools for the first time, DT Controller will be added to the level and marked as active. Only one controller can be active at the time. However, you can have multiple controllers in the scene. Each of them can have different sequence length or different play rate. So for example, we have the default controller that holds tracks for this box, but we can create a new one, add new tracks and animations for the same objects. Therefore, when I select this box, it doesn't have any tracks since the second controller is now active. Switching back to the first controller, I will get the animation I created earlier. You can think of controllers as different animation sets for the scene. It gives you more flexibility within a single level. Note that whether you have a single or multiple controllers in the scene, you can browse what actors have tracks in this controller using DT Outliner. Go to the top menu and choose Director Tools Outliner. Here you can see a tree view of controllers and actors that have tracks in it. If you select any list element, the object will also be selected in the scene. Keep in mind that this is still a work in progress and we are working on improvements all the time. Allow me to load up a scene with a more complex sequence and multiple controllers so you can understand it better. So, in this scene I have two controllers. In the first one, all objects are moving up and the skeletal mesh is playing a walk animation. Now I switch to the second controller. As you can see, now all objects are moving sideways and the character is playing an idle animation. This approach will allow us to play different sequences in a game depending on, for example, player input. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for watching.